The mystery of karma has accompanied humanity since its beginnings, but it was Rudolf Steiner who revealed its deepest essence. Karma is not a punishment imposed by a merciless fate, nor is it a reward granted to a chosen few. It is, rather, a spiritual law that connects causes and effects within the invisible fabric of life. Every action, every thought, and every feeling are threads we weave into the great tapestry of the cosmos. And these threads return to us, not to punish, but to teach, to guide the soul step by step toward a more conscious encounter with itself. Steiner reminds us that life is not limited to the present moment. What we experience today is, in large part, the result of forces we ourselves set in motion in the past. At the same time, everything we do now already shapes the future, not only our own destiny, but also that of the people around us. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything vibrates in mutual connection. When we look back and recognize the moments when we suffered or were led onto paths we did not desire, we can begin to see that these events were not cosmic mistakes, nor meaningless accidents. They were quiet calls, invisible invitations to awaken an inner strength that would otherwise have remained asleep. In this way, karma reveals itself as the wisest of teachers, guiding us step by step toward spiritual freedom. This understanding transforms the way we see life. We no longer view human encounters as scattered coincidences, but as reunions guided by hidden threads. Every friendship, every enmity, every person who crosses our path carries a message from the past, a reminder that the soul is immortal and that interrupted stories must be continued until they find their completion. The mystery of karma, therefore, invites us to live with greater reverence. With every gesture, every word, and every decision, we are sowing the seeds of the future. And when we understand that nothing is ever lost, that everything returns as waves of learning, we become able to face life with more awareness, more love, and more responsibility. What Steiner shows us is that karma does not bind us, but instead opens a path to self-knowledge. It leads us to the insight that, at the deepest level, we are co-creators of our own destiny, and that true freedom is born only when we have the courage to accept the consequences of what we ourselves have set into motion. There is no encounter in life that is truly accidental. Rudolf Steiner reminds us that every person we meet carries a deeper story with us, a story not always present in our awareness, yet still alive in the hidden layers of the soul. Friends who surround us with warmth, enemies who challenge us, and even strangers who cross our path for just a moment are messengers from a past long forgotten, but never lost in the language of karma. The thread of these encounters stretches across centuries and millennia. We return to Earth again, and with us return those souls with whom we were once connected. Sometimes they appear in familiar closeness, sometimes in painful distance. Yet, there is always an invisible bond that ties us together, a promise we made to ourselves and to others long before we took on this present form. When we understand that destiny does not work like a cold throw of the dice, but like a finely woven net, we begin to see meaning in every encounter. Perhaps it is a knot left open that seeks to be untied. Perhaps it is a debt that needs to be balanced. Or perhaps it is an old love returning in a new form, ready to carry us once again. Karma calls us in every encounter to move forward, to learn, to heal. It brings us to people who help us recognize our own limits, and to others who cast us into our own shadow, so that we may reignite the light within. In this play of closeness and distance, harmony and conflict, we discover the deep law of existence. Nothing happens in vain, and no person enters our life without meaning. When we recognize this thread of reunion, reverence begins to grow within us. We start to see people not just on the surface, but as souls, like us, walking the long path of evolution. Each carries a secret, Each bears a burden, and yet we are all connected by invisible bridges. The knowledge of this karmic thread can help us become more open, more patient, and more loving. For one who realizes that even the most difficult person may be an old companion will no longer see only an enemy, but also a teacher. In this way, karma leads us out of the illusion of chance and shows us every encounter is a mirror, every encounter is an opportunity, and every encounter is a step on the path that leads us back to our true self. To many people, karma appears like a dark force that strikes us with pain and loss. But Rudolf Steiner reveals a deeper view. What we call suffering is not punishment, but teaching, not revenge, but a quiet voice of the universe calling us to the next stage of our becoming. Every blow of fate, no matter how bitter it may feel, carries within it the power to transform us into courage, to open us to compassion, and to renew us in the depths of our being. We are used to praising happiness and cursing pain, yet when we enter into the law of karma, we realize that suffering itself is the secret teacher of the soul. Just as a blacksmith hardens iron in fire, we too are shaped by trials so that forces may awaken in us that could never be born in comfort. Without resistance, there is no growth. Without trials, no maturity. Without pain, no true humanity. Steiner shows us that the laws of karma carry a moral wisdom. They not only place us in outer situations, but also lead us inward to experiences that teach us to take responsibility for our own actions. Every misfortune, every seeming injustice calls us to look deeper, to search for the hidden meaning, and to see what happens to us not only as a burden, but as a task. When we look at suffering in this way, our vision changes. We no longer see only the pain, but the strength hidden within it. We understand that we do not need to fight against fate, but rather learn to walk with it, to accept it, in order to bring forth the inner gold that lies concealed within. Thus, karma becomes the greatest teacher that accompanies us. It does not speak with loud words, but with the language of experience, with the language of trials, and of the silence that follows them. And whoever begins to hear this language discovers that every shadow is in truth an invitation to the light. Karma is the wisdom that tirelessly educates us until we realize that we ourselves are co-creators of our destiny. It shows us that we become free not by avoiding suffering, but by transforming it into awareness, into love, and into inner strength. And so through the school of karma, the human being grows step by step into their true greatness. Not only the individual carries karma within, but also peoples, nations, and entire cultures are woven with the invisible threads of destiny. Rudolf Steiner points out that communities, just like individuals, return to Earth again and again, to fulfill tasks, to balance debts, and to keep old promises. What we see in history as the rise and fall of empires, as golden ages of art, or as catastrophes and wars, is in truth an expression of collective karma, working through generations and educating humanity as a whole. We are used to looking at history as a chain of random events, a play of power, chance, and interests. Yet deeper laws are at work. Every culture that reaches its hour of greatness also carries within itself the seed of its decline, not as a curse, but as a transition to a new stage. Every nation stands in a spiritual connection with other nations, and through encounters, often also through painful clashes, a plan is fulfilled that points far beyond a single lifetime. When we understand history in this way, we see that our personal destiny is inseparably linked with the destiny of the community in which we live. We are not isolated beings, but members of a great stream. And the trials a people goes through are trials for the souls that have gathered within that people. In the joy that a culture creates and in the suffering it must endure, the sum of countless karmic connections is reflected. Steiner shows us that we carry responsibility not only for our own life, but also for the spiritual development of the community to which we belong. By becoming aware of this responsibility, we can begin to help shape collective karma, not as blind followers, but as awakened human beings who know that their actions reach into the future of humanity. In this way, we learn to see history not only as the past, but as a living present that we ourselves continue to write. Every step we take in awareness and love changes not only our personal destiny, but also the destiny of the peoples to which we belong. In this greater context, it becomes clear. Karma is not only the school of the individual, it is the school of humanity as a whole. Among all the forces that shape human destiny, there is one that stands apart from the rest. Rudolf Steiner describes it as the force that does not bind us to the chains of karma, but opens doors into the future. This force is love. While hate, envy, and fear constantly weave new threads that tie us to past actions, love is the only power that does not inscribe itself into the fabric of karma as repetition, but instead as a seed of freedom. Every act of true love, whether small or great, does not vanish into transience. It remains in the cosmos like a shining seed that will grow in a future time. Wherever love has worked, there arises not a compulsion to repeat, but a new beginning, a possibility that carries the earth and humanity further in their evolution. Steiner makes us aware that love is not only a feeling between human beings, but a cosmic force written deep into the blueprint of the world. When we love, we act not only for ourselves or for the moment. In truth, we act for the future of the earth. Love is the substance from which the new cosmos will be born, the one that will one day take the place of the old. That is why every act of love is a creative event. It transforms the streams of karma, which would otherwise return us again and again to old patterns, into streams that point forward, into streams that bring forth the new. Whoever loves sows freedom. Whoever loves writes the future. And so it becomes clear that the greatest mystery of karma does not lie in repetition, but in the possibility of liberation. Everything else binds us, everything else calls us back, but love lifts us beyond the law of return. It is the gate through which we step into the true future. When we recognize this mystery, our view of life begins to change. We understand that it lies in our hands to plant seeds of light that will one day grow when the earth is transformed. Every moment of love that we give is a stone in the foundation of the coming world. And so it becomes clear, love is not only a human impulse, it is the strongest cosmic force given to us, and it is the true hope of the earth. There are encounters in life that are difficult for us, encounters connected with pain, disappointment, or even hate. We ask ourselves why this particular person enters our life, why he or she brings us such suffering. But Rudolf Steiner shows that even these encounters do not come by chance, but are part of a greater plan. Old conflicts, left unresolved in past lives, return, not to destroy us, but to give us the chance to finally overcome them. Every person who hurts us, every opponent we meet on our path, is in truth also a mirror of our own past. Perhaps the roles were once reversed. Perhaps we ourselves sowed the suffering that now comes back to us. The law of karma ensures that the scales tilt again, not to punish us, but to call us toward reconciliation. Thus, even the darkest encounters are invitations. They invite us to rise above the circle of hate and revenge. They urge us to speak the word of forgiveness, not superficially, but from the depth of the soul. For only through the power of forgiveness can the old bond be dissolved, and only through compassion can a new beginning arise. Steiner makes it clear that the enmities which weigh on us the most often hold the deepest tasks for our soul. The one who opposes us today may become our closest companion tomorrow if we find the strength to transform the past. Just as metal can be reshaped in fire into a new material, so too can the forces of the soul be purified in the fire of destiny. And here lies the great hope. Nothing is bound to hate forever. Every bond can be transformed, every debt resolved, every wound healed. Karma brings us again and again together with those with whom we still have an unfinished account, until we learn to settle it not with new guilt, but with love. Thus we come to see, even the hardest encounters are not punishment, but opportunity. They are trials that call us to inner greatness, and when we accept them, we not only transform our own destiny, but also the course of history. For every reconciliation we achieve continues to work within the fabric of humanity. In every human being lives a memory that reaches deeper than the consciousness we know in daily life. It is not an ordinary memory that keeps names and dates, but a hidden archive of the soul. It accompanies us as we cross the threshold of death and meets us again when we enter a new life. Rudolf Steiner calls it the spiritual memory, an invisible book in which every thought, every deed, and every encounter is indelibly recorded. This memory does not speak in clear images that we can call up at any moment. It works in secret, yet it guides our destiny. When we meet someone and feel an instant, unexplained closeness, when we sense that a glance or a word means more than the present moment could explain, it is this memory of the soul that lights up within us. It calls from the depths. You know this person you have met before, and here an old story continues. In decisive moments, when we stand at great turning points in life, this inner remembering rises especially strong. It is like a quiet tone that guides us, like an invisible hand showing us that we are not standing on earth for the first time, that we have already walked many paths, and that the people who now cross our way have long been with us. Steiner explains that this hidden memory does not work only for the individual, but also serves karma. It ensures that we find again those with whom we still have unfinished tasks. It is the spiritual bond that leads us back to the souls who once were bound to us in love, or with whom unresolved conflicts still connect us. And so we learn to see the present more deeply. Behind every person who comes close to us may lie a story that reaches far beyond this life. Behind every feeling of closeness or strangeness hides the voice of this memory, reminding us of the true connections of our soul. The memory of the soul is a quiet but unfailing guide. It shows us that nothing is lost, that every encounter is preserved, and that everything we do is inscribed into the great stream of eternity. Whoever begins to listen to this inner remembering discovers that life is a continuing conversation of the soul with eternity. Rudolf Steiner points us toward a future in which human consciousness will no longer be as veiled as it is today. At present, we still live under the veil of chance. We believe that encounters happen because circumstances allow them, because paths cross, because outer needs bring them about. Yet in truth, as Steiner explains, every encounter is carried by the invisible threads of karma, which lead us to the very souls we need for our own growth. Today, we can only sense these threads, sometimes faintly, like a quiet echo. We feel them when someone suddenly seems familiar to us, or when we sense that an encounter touches us more deeply than its outer cause would suggest. But in the future, this sensing will become certainty. Human beings will recognize with increasing clarity why they stand before a particular person, why this meeting happens at this very moment, and what soul task lies hidden within it. The development of humanity leads us toward a time when the spiritual will become more directly perceptible. Just as we now perceive the physical body of another, one day we will recognize the connections of the soul. We will see that every encounter is a mirror, a reflection of our own history, and at the same time a sign pointing toward our future. This new consciousness will transform us. It will make us more careful, more responsible, more reverent toward every person we meet. For we will know. No glance, no word, no encounter is without meaning. Everything is woven into a greater purpose. Steiner describes that with this awakening of humanity, a new form of social life will arise. When we recognize the karmic threads, hate and mistrust will lose their power over us. Instead, we will learn not to judge others only by their outward behavior, but by the history of their soul, which is inseparably woven with our own. Thus, a future is announced in which human beings will no longer walk in the fog of chance, but in the light of recognition. Every step, every encounter will then be experienced as a conscious part of the great spiritual plan. And in this light, we will discover that what now appears dark and mysterious will one day become a clear revelation of truth. The law of karma is often understood as if it were a rigid mechanism, an unchangeable power that binds us and determines our life down to the smallest detail. But Rudolf Steiner shows us a different picture. Yes, karma works. It weaves the threads of our destiny and leads us to people, situations, and trials that come from our own past. But this law is not here to chain us. It is here to set us free. In the moment we begin to consciously see the connections of our destiny, karma changes from a seemingly blind necessity into a guide. What before appeared as compulsion becomes a task we can freely take up. We realize, yes, this suffering has come to me. Yes, this person appears in my life again and again, but I can choose how I respond. I can repeat the old pattern, or I can break it and create something new. Steiner makes it clear that freedom does not mean being separated from karma, but working with it consciously. Just as a musician is not free if he ignores the laws of harmony, but becomes truly free only when he understands them and gives them a new form, so too does the human being become free when he recognizes the laws of karma and transforms them through love. This means that we carry within us the power to break old chains by acting consciously in a different way than we did in the past. Every act of understanding, every step of forgiveness, every deed of love is a victory over repetition. And this victory opens a space of freedom greater than we ever thought possible. Karma determines where we stand, but it does not determine how we walk. It brings us the encounters we need, yet the answer we give is our own. And in this answer, the true dignity of the human being is revealed. Thus we learn that the transformation of karma is not a distant dream, but a daily possibility. At every moment we can decide not to see the past as a prison, but as a starting point for a new path. And on this path grows the freedom that is the true goal of human existence. When we look back on life, we often see a series of encounters, of happy coincidences, of painful losses and unexpected turns. But when we look more deeply, we realize that none of this is truly by chance. Every encounter, every step, every trial is part of a great spiritual order that we call karma. Just as a tapestry is woven from many threads, so too is our life woven into the infinite fabric of humanity. Every person we meet is a thread in this fabric, and we ourselves are also a thread in the fabric of others. This awareness changes our heart. We begin to see people not only for the moment that appears on the surface, but as beings who share a long history with us. Perhaps the friend of today was once our opponent. Perhaps the stranger who touches us deeply is an old companion. Perhaps the painful encounter that challenges us is the most important lesson of our life. Chance is only the veil behind which the Spirit works. When we lift this veil, we see the truth, that life is guided, that we are accompanied, that every encounter can be a doorway to growth, reconciliation, and love. Rudolf Steiner shows us that the law of karma is not meant to bind us, but to lift us up. It invites us to understand our destiny, to accept it, and to shape it consciously. In every encounter, the Spirit calls us to greater understanding, to deeper compassion, to true freedom. And so we can say, No person enters our life without meaning. No glance, no word, no shared path is ever lost. Everything is part of a higher melody, one that we ourselves once helped to shape, and that we will continue to shape. When we realize this, our view of existence is transformed. We no longer see only a sequence of accidents, but a journey full of meaning, one that leads us step by step to the truth of our own being. And we learn to look at life with reverence, for we now know no encounter is accidental. Each one is a gift of the Spirit, a mirror of our soul, and a doorway to the love that unites us all.